Welcome everybody to this Tech Tuesday, August edition of Tech Tuesday. Today's focus is on fueling innovation through research. The Tech Tuesdays are part of the continual education program of the Innovation Center of the Medical Center of the Americas Foundation. The Innovation Center is a program that supports entrepreneurs and startups and businesses. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. The Innovation Center is focused on supporting entrepreneurs and businesses, on developing products, on generating growth strategies, and general business design. The Tech Tuesdays this year are focused on sources of innovation, and throughout the year we've seen several sources and have had great speakers. Today with us we have three great researchers from the El Paso region. We have with a doctoral degree in industrial engineering from Clemson University, Dr. Chilil Madatho has a research background in operations research, data analysis, simulation, and process improvement in healthcare, energy, and supply chain management. Dr. Crawford, also with us, has an ample background in healthcare research. He's director of training and the Educational Center for Healthcare Simulation in the Texas Tech, an associate professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Paul L. Foster School of Medicine, also an educational technology consultant for Southwest Center for Pediatric Environment Health, and is board member for the nonprofit SIMCOS. Luis Ochoa, also with us, is a mechanical engineer with expertise in CAD design, additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and prototyping. He was manager at the UTEP Keck Center for almost 5 years. Now recently founded a startup called Goal Product Development, a company focused on helping entrepreneurs and inventors with their design and prototyping needs. So welcome all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to have you all with us. So to start off this conversation, I would like to ask you, how do you envision the role of research on innovation? How specifically does research impact innovation as opposed to other sources of innovation? We've seen culture, education, relationships. How do you see research on that mix?
Yeah, I can take a quick crack on that. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving this opportunity. So with respect to the topic on how the research impact the innovation, what I feel is that typically in the academic institution we have a lot of incremental research, and this incremental research across various other organizations is very crucial for larger innovation. So one quick example is that currently almost many of the industries are going to the industry 4.0, or that's the latest paradigm, or the fourth industrial revolution that is going on. And it includes the various components like additive manufacturing, cloud computing, cybersecurity, Internet of Things. And all these are, the various incremental research that is happening in various spectrum. And all these different, the smaller research, has to collaborate together to have a bigger impact on this larger innovation called the Industry 4.0. If you look into each of these factors, each component itself has its own capabilities of research, and this collaboration is what can bring all these different this research into one big larger innovation. And this collaboration is a test bed for these various kind of innovations that can happen. So I would say the research has a large impact on that.
Mm-hmm.
So within healthcare, we're able to see lots of
interactions between some of the research that's being done, as well as the ability to have that research help find new questions that are not yet known, and then seeking solutions and being able to test those through further research. So sort of an iterative cycle between continuing to expand and then trying to find those solutions, but then also in a systematic and structured way, identifying if those new proposed solutions are actually improving the quality of either care provided, efficiency of education delivered, or similar things that are of importance to the institution that's seeking those solutions.
Okay. Yeah, definitely it provides this methodology of systematically engaging with the technology and improving and gathering the partnerships to push forward the innovation. Now, inside the research influence sphere, what factors do you think that impact the innovation that do you think need more attention? Like, I don't know, policies, grants, student or talent retention? What factors within research do you think need that attention?
Let me add to that. I think it's needed development, because we're only doing a lot of research, but not so much development, right? So a lot of the research ends up being in a publication, a patent, but after that, there needs to be a follow-up, right? So what outcome do you have from the research? What product, what new idea, what are companies doing with all that research, right? Because if it's just a publication, I would say it's just spending research funding, but not so much developing a new product, right? So I think development and commercialization of this research needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think within almost all universities, there are some departments that definitely helps in creating entrepreneurs, or how to start a startup. So there are some resources that are available within the universities, to help the upcoming students, to come up with their innovations and make that into a marketable product. I would say, how we convert this innovation by the students, and how we convert that into a technology transfer definitely, comes under the policies within the organization, because the universities are also interested in all these patents and everything, and how they can monetize this. But I think in terms of converting that into an entrepreneurship from the student side is what can drive the innovations more forward, and how they can benefit from these innovations would definitely help them in the long term. And definitely grants are a major reasons why a lot of innovations could happen. It could be federal funds or from the industries. And once we have the funds, we will be like as a faculty, we'll be able to support more students. And when we have more students working on projects, that itself is a good additive benefits to the students, that they will be learning something state of the art, and they can expand on whatever that they have already known from this experience, and that would definitely drive the innovations to the next level.
Frequently, one of the issues that exists within educational institutions is the constant pull to participate in multiple realms, whether it's research and publication or actual teaching and providing of clinical service, and in my experience. And so trying to find enough time to be able to balance and really focus into an area to expand it beyond just an initial idea or development, and be able to take it further into the full design and testing and commercialization is a much harder area to be able to gain enough time and enough sort of separation from those other tasks to be able to focus on it. And I think that there are many innovators within their programs that have great ideas, are able to push them forward, and it's this great light bulb, and you can sort of write it out on paper, but then may not have the follow through or interest to be able to take it to that next level, and finding other ways for either an institution or independent entities to take those ideas and to be able to move them forward where they may not be able to do so in their current environment.
Okay, you all three bring up really interesting points and very varied, but just to focus on one at a time, You mentioned like a continuing with the, okay, you have the research, what's next? Where is it gonna go? And that usually is in the form of technology transfer or other types of development programs. How would you, what would you say is a good technology transfer operation or program? What needs to be in place in order for research to continue into the innovation pipeline?
I think one of the biggest things is the ability to feel like you can share and explore freely without fear that your design or innovation or special idea is going to be put at jeopardy in some way. And I've seen that from other faculty members where they've done something really unique, but they aren't sure whether it's worthwhile. And so they're hesitant to share it or describe it further. And the sort of constant push and pull between free sharing of innovation and ideas versus the notion that they need to be fully locked down and protected and developed in-house so that they can later lead to future commercialization. Those are difficult to move through, especially for faculty who may have a very altruistic interest and wish to share freely, but then may later find out that they've let something else slide through that they didn't know to protect or didn't know to handle differently. And there's not a lot of background in how to pursue these types of steps, at least from the medical school side, unless you also have a biomedical engineering degree or something else that you've taken alongside of that.
Yeah, so like we are in the industrial engineering department here, and most of the tools that we use in our programs are basically sometimes some point in time like they might have developed this program while they were in their education at that time, and later they moved into their own company. A few such examples would be, I teach simulation here in this class, whereby we are looking mainly into the process of different facilities, the product manufacturing, so on and so forth. So some of the softwares that we use for the simulation models, like the Simio, the Flexim, and they are all now independent companies. But if you look into how they have developed, they are all at some point in time, they have been faculties, or they developed it as part of their the student work, and now they are one of the like leading companies in developing simulation models. So that itself is kind of a technology transfer from the academia to their own product development, and that is what happens in most of the technologies that we use in our department, at least. So like I think it's kind of a seamless operation when we think about in the industrial engineering department.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's very good. That's a very good opportunity for everybody, students and faculty, to become entrepreneurs, right? But if they're not doing that, I think there's a need to find companies that are willing to share the risk, on developing something out of the research. But again, as Dr. Crawford was saying, yeah, a lot of faculties or projects may not be so freely to be shared. So that might be a problem as well.
Mm-hmm. It really, as Dr. Madafil said, it really depends on what area of research you're doing. If it's industrial, it has a seamless pipeline. But if it's medical, then maybe there's opportunity there to understand from different research areas how the pipeline works, how the company partnerships work, and understand that development. Every single one might be different, but there's opportunity to even learn between areas, as you said. Now, also you all mentioned of promoting entrepreneurship within the academia, within the students. How do you install an innovation culture inside academia or a university?
So to my experience, like a few of the universities have this the incubation, the innovation incubation centers, that helps the students, to see what are some of the challenges that they will face. They even provide some of the education on finance, or the money related thing. So most of the students will have some really good idea, but they don't know how to market it or how to produce it. And there are some really some supportive elements, but I think there is some still scope for improvement, for enhancing that ability. We need an experienced entrepreneur who's already successful in that region, to come and maybe present what are some of the challenges that they face, or what are some of the challenges that they could face. That sharing is very important. And like the universities would be very happy to host these kind of talks, to have these this expertise come and talk to our students, and and share their experience all the time.
Yeah,
Often
another. Oh, go ahead,
Louis.
Dr. Crawford. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Crawford.
So oftentimes the students are put into positions where they have an obligation to produce something, but it's frequently put forward as a checkbox to move forward, and there isn't necessarily the further development to take something past that. And so in a individual who is just looking to move forward and to advance and to get their degree or move on, trying to be able to show them the benefits to doing research are often not put out up front, and it's just the requirement to get it done, and they don't get to see the longer term goals of it. I mean, I'm going to use myself as an example, but I went in to medical school and came out of residency swearing I was never going to do research. I was never going to go into academics because I didn't understand the utility or benefit from it. And now here I am 12 years later at Texas Tech, and heavily involved in both academia and research. And I think if I had been able to understand earlier on how the two work together, and the potential benefits and opportunities for growth within those areas, it might have helped me to have a better understanding of the type of culture to take better ownership of those types of projects and opportunities when they were presented, rather than just viewing them as checkbox that needed to be taken care of for advancement.
And I think these checkboxes are also applied to classes. There's some, at least in my case, I attended a few courses that I had to, but during the class, you had to come up with a new idea, a new product that you will have to present, and you'll get a grade at the end of the semester. But if in case you have a good idea, it only ends up with an A or B as a grade, right? If it's a very good idea, it's just filed. So I think there should be an interest from other faculties, other entrepreneurs, I don't know, probably industry leaders, charts, willing to look at all those projects. You may end up with a very good idea from these classes, right? And they're not so much to teach you how to come up with ideas, but to follow the whole process. But there's a good ideas on these classes that are not being considered in my point of view.
So looking for ways of taking that checkbox and extending it beyond into further growth, rather than having that checkbox be the end and final project.
Exactly.
Yeah, getting that follow up on the idea. Now, what are your general thoughts on doing innovation focused research or research focused entrepreneurship? That's like different pushes where you focus your research on something innovative, especially for entrepreneurship, or the other side is where you promote entrepreneurs to come and look at the research and then develop the products. It's kind of like a push-pull into the market. And I'm curious as to what are your thoughts on that?
No thoughts, I guess. So I think both are good, but you will end up, the funding, it's always an issue, I would say. If you have some funding for specific research, so you have to focus on that, right? So that's doing that, using that research, you need to come up with a product. you can probably engage entrepreneurs into that and come up with something. If it's the other way around, I think funding will be an issue, right? Where are you going to get the funding from?
I think when you start with entrepreneurship, it forces and pushes product development at a faster speed, but it may not always improve the quality of the effort being put forward because of the expectation and need to put something out that is able to help provide that return. Whereas research beginning with innovation that then seeks to find the funding later has less of that urgency and probably tends to be more of an academic interest, but should and hopefully continues to find opportunities for that growth, but it probably pursues at a slightly slower rate. But I'm guessing that the products that are eventually pushed forward are generally of more depth and substance when they're finally thought through in that order.
Yeah, and as an academicians, like I would support mainly on the research side of it, than the entrepreneur side of it, because that is the research is what we can do better than, like, at least from my perspective, than the entrepreneur side of it. So like the research, it's like you can always take it to the next level. We need some expertise in that area, but the research part is what excites me in terms of the job part.
Okay. So kind of in the same question is, what do you think like the region would benefit more of promoting more researchers with entrepreneurs relationships, or supporting researchers to become entrepreneurs?
I think in general, it's harder, particularly because of limitations with institutional appointments and other things, to turn the researcher into an entrepreneur by themselves because of the potential conflicts. Certainly something that I think many would be open to, but it seems like more of a conflict when you already have those other ties, but being able to find better opportunities to share the innovation and the research with others who are better able to support and push those ideas forward outside of their origins is probably the area that I think would be best focused on so far.
Yeah, and to add to that point, one of the my personal thought on this is that the students, who whoever is in the academia side, so they should be exposed to the state of the art technologies that are available. And one of the ways that we can have that exposure is to connect to the industries, that whatever that they are using in the most cost-effective way, most efficient way. And that itself will help the student learn about what is the state of the art and how they can take it to the next level. So I still feel that there is a huge gap between this academia and the industry, and there is a need to bridge that gap. And like we as an academic institution can definitely help the industries. Industries has the best problems that we as academicians would be interested to solve, and there should be some way to connect that bridge, so that we can work with the industry, as well as it's going to be a win-win-win situations, in the way that the students is going to learn the state of the art, that we are able, like as faculties, like we'll be able to do some the really interesting research, and for industries, they'll be able to solve their problems. And there needs to be that a deep-rooted relationship between the industry and academia to have this kind of relationship. And I think that is what is missing in this particular region, where our students may not be exposed to the latest the know-how that we have in this region, and there should be some ways to bridge that gap.
And what do you think about, and because are very different research areas, it might vary a lot, but what do you think about over-reliance on sponsored research from the industry? Like when the industry comes, especially, for example, in your case, Dr. Madacio, where industry sponsors a certain problem, or researching a specific solution, as opposed to what I would think that happens on your case, Dr. Crawford, where you apply for grants for research that you are interested in pursuing, as opposed to something that's like sponsored. Do you think that what are the pros and cons on over reliance on industry specific research?
Well, I think regardless of the industry, many of the large scale issues do require some type of industry sponsorship to be able to move forward because of the amount of capital required to solve these particularly complex problems. We've already solved many of the lower hanging issues that we could have solved with institutional funding. And so being able to go after these larger scale issues requires some of that external support. But we have a second issue where even good quality research that is industry sponsored comes under heavy scrutiny, particularly within medicine, at least, if it receives sponsorship from drug corporations or medical supply manufacturers, where it's assumed or at least implied that there may be some bias or interest to push certain pieces forward or not promote potential negative connotations or negative outcomes that weren't necessarily as relevant to the outcome. And so it almost starts to have the appearance of marketing within research as opposed to research that is pure and unadulterated from its origins of finance. So that's one of the areas that needs to be very cautiously approached, particularly within healthcare. And we're already seeing, I think, parts of that with some distrust for the way that different drug companies and medicines and therapeutics are being put out, because many of them require sponsorship from the corporation to be able to get the numbers of patients and the size of samples needed to show effect. But then you wonder whether there's some implicit bias behind the scenes going into those.
Oh, that's a hard point. Yeah. So yes, Dr. Madathi.
Yeah, so in terms of the any form of funding, right? So one of the advantage that I would say with solving the industry sponsored funding is that we would be able to get the real, so it's not a theoretical model, it's going to be a real world problem. And like one thing is that a group of students can definitely, work on those real world problems and solve it. And we can utilize that information and teach it to the next cohort of students, telling that, this is a real world problem that we were able to find. And that information itself is helps students. Okay, these are some of the problems that are there in. So I teach class on industrial and systems engineering in healthcare. So most of the time I take examples from the real projects that we did earlier and see, okay, how we can improve a patient experience, how we can improve the processes in a hospital, and all how we can make the quality improvements in the hospital. So these are some of the real world examples that we did. So how do we design a better hospital whereby the nurses doesn't need to walk longer? So what are some of the ways? So when we say those real world examples from these projects that we did, the students can actually connect, okay, this is how we apply the industrial engineering in a healthcare domain. And that will help the faculties to give real world examples. But we need that kind of relationship with the industries, and that requires some form of a sponsorship, so that we can have that as a long term benefits.
Luis, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I agree. I think industry will require or will request a final product, right? At least you're gonna see it on not on the market, but on whatever. If they have a problem on a manufacturing line, you're gonna see the benefit of the research that was developed at the university. So I think that's something that you can touch, a result that you can see. Other than if it's not through a company, it's you'll do the research, you'll publish, and that's perfect. But industry will require something that they can actually use. So I think that's a good benefit of that.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So you mentioned that a big part of the whole research is competing for talent and developing the students to have this innovation mindset. How would you recommend the region as a whole to compete hard on attracting talent? Because I've seen that one of the issues in the El Paso region is that students go outside of El Paso to other cities nearby. How can we remain competitive as a region?
Let me start with that. I think at the first of all, don't let talent go, right? You don't even have to attract them. Just don't let them go. At least in the additive manufacturing and 3D printing area that I live on, there's not a lot of industry in town. You know, the Keck Center, it's one of the biggest, and the experience that you get there, there's not a lot of work, a lot of jobs in town. So what they have to do, they have to leave and find for jobs elsewhere. But if you're able to come up with that industry here, which is something that I'm kind of helping with, you don't let the talent go, because a lot of the talent don't want to go, but they just don't have an option, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, that was my point as well. You know, the job opportunities, the one of the major things that, you know, people would. So most of my students, you know, who just graduated, you know, they have been going to Seattle and all the other places, because that is a place where they were able to find a really good paying jobs. And, you know, they left the city, and, you know, but, you know, they have to move on with their job, like at present, because they don't have the opportunity here. So yeah, there should be like we should have some, you know, job gap analysis to see, you know, how can we bring more jobs here.
Continuing to support, again, availability of high quality workforce to stay or be attracted into the region. But one of the areas that I continue to hear, and I don't know if this is an easy solution, obviously, but making sure that the quality of life in the city is, I personally think that it's wonderful, but we need to make sure that that perception is maintained, because there are some that might not know or understand the benefits of being in the region here, and making sure that that's understood to be able to help attract in and maintain that constant influx of good talent that might be getting attracted away to flashier sounding cities that have a reputation.
Mhm. Mhm. And how would you consider building this, not just the community aspect, not just in relationships and job, but like establishing physical spaces or programs where you can connect researchers and this talent with non-academic partners to retain this talent and to promote this innovation-focused research?
See, I've seen a lot of co-working spaces opening these last couple of years. So I think that's a very good option, but not only for entrepreneurs, you know, so people from industry, people from universities, from academia, they all have to merge somewhere. And these co-working spaces may be a good point, you know, let's come up with, bring some talks, and then let's bring people from industry, from academia, and let's get them together so they can talk. They might have a research project that an entrepreneur is interested in. So how do you bring them in on board, you know? So I think co-working spaces are good as long as you have the right people on the right time, on the right place, right?
And I think we may have stumbled across some opportunities there. At least for academia, it's harder to enter into these types of co-working environments because of the need to stay within a sort of closed off office or space on a campus in a back hallway somewhere. And so the opportunities to just bump into others goes down. But if there's open access to locations with floor plans to bounce ideas off of that aren't these closed environments with section doors and allow for more general exchange, but I get to see that much more happens around the water cooler and the lunch hall than most of the other places, just because you aren't getting the opportunity to interact. And so these co-working spaces like this are a great opportunity. And now with the ability to still check in virtually with meetings and other things on campus may allow for more flexibility for researchers to be able to participate in those types of spaces.
And there are various federal grants also to encourage this industry university the research collaborations. So the NSF has the center called the option for the IUCRC. It's the Industry University Research Consortium. But the only thing is that the universities would definitely be interested to participate in these federal grants. And like to my experience, it is hard for me to convince the industries to share their problems and how we can build this particular experience. And basically what this will offer is that it will give an experience to our undergraduate students, our graduate students, to have a real world problem that they can solve and learn from this. And that will definitely add to the existing workforce here. They will know about the company here, they will know what is the problem, and definitely that is one of the potential candidate that they can hire if they have an opportunity, like once they graduate. And like there are many such mechanisms that we can utilize to expand this horizon. And definitely academicians would be definitely interested in all these type of grants. Industrial engineering would be definitely interested and would take lead in these kind of efforts if we have the correct partnerships for these kind of activities.
Great. I would just like to pause a bit our conversation and to remind everyone that's listening that you can write your questions, any comments that you have on the chat box, and we can ask the speakers, our guests, anything that you might want to share with the speakers. So now we've talked, I'm really interested in this because it's getting even more complex, this whole research environment, this whole innovation source of parting from research. And there's all these different key aspects, key areas that need to come together. Now, on a critical sense, what do you think that is still needed, like stakeholders or programs? What do you think is needed to further robust the researching and the innovation from research efforts of the region?
I would say seed funding will be one of them, or investors or companies willing to risk into new products or new project ideas, new research. I think that will be some.
I have to say, I similarly agree with the small innovations and research projects that I've had. The biggest limitation to them moving forward further is finding somebody to step out on a limb and take that risk in a financial manner to be able to push them into a full marketability stage.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting, because the MCA is right now working on developing the seed fund program, and it's quite interesting that there's this very needed market on the researchers that need to develop these programs and these products. How would you describe the whole El Paso, Juarez, New Mexico research community? What trends do you see? How do you see it evolving in the next 5 years or so?
This is just based on my my research and my personal opinion. So one of the things that like any industry, so when the COVID-19 hit, what we observed was that many companies did some pivot in manufacturing their products from their current existing product to they might have to do some pivots and building PPEs or whatever that is required at that point of time. And again, most of the small and medium enterprises in the region, this is true for all companies across the country, that they are very reluctant to try the latest the industry 4.0, how to make it more connected, how to utilize the data. It's mainly because they are unaware of what is going to happen, or how do I get the return on investment. So they are still very skeptical about it. And what I foresee is that there is going to be a huge shift in that particular mindset of, maybe the entrepreneurs, trying to see, okay, maybe what happens, if that change, like if I adopt some of the industry 4.0. So here, in the industrial engineering department, we teach additive manufacturing. We have the digital twin, augmented reality, virtual reality, and how all these technologies is definitely going to help it make their existing production facility more productive. And there should be a change that should happen, like, because the other countries, China, Europe, and all are moving into that direction, and we don't want our country to to be held back because we are a little bit reluctant to see the return on investment. And there should be, like, once we see the other countries are moving in that direction, definitely that is going to happen here also. One such example would be in the electric vehicle industry. So now you have heard the news that BMW, Volvo, all these companies have decided that they are going to stop the internal combustion engine and move to the electric vehicle only mode. So what will happen to the existing companies here that makes spark plugs or the internal combustion engine itself, so they have to do some form of pivot. So when they do those kind of pivot, like, we have to, like, the academy would be very, very much interested in supporting these companies to see how they can efficiently pivot to the industry 4.0. So to modular manufacturing, to more efficient manufacturing. And so again, that is one of the trends that we would see in this particular region, because we have a lot of manufacturing across the border and within the border. And like this, adopting this would be a major challenge, but once they have that in that mindset, we have a lot of opportunities for further growth. And this would also help us solve one of your questions, in how do we retain the talent. Like in UTEP and the Texas Tech, we have a lot of students from Tech Center and who are experienced in all these industry 4.0 capabilities, and they would stay here, once we have these opportunities, and once these companies started to adopt all this industry 4.0. And that is where we hope the region would move in the next 4 or 5 years, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yes, I totally agree as well. But also, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurship going on in town, and I foresee that it's gonna continue happening. And I think in the next couple of months, couple of years, we need to have a successful idea coming to market, right? So all this entrepreneurship needs to bring all these idea into market, and then people from outside are gonna look at us as like that, entrepreneurs really doing something to bring to the world. So I think I've seen that a lot, and I think it's going somewhere.
Awesome. And yeah, Dr. Crawford.
I was just going to say that I've been able to watch some of the relationships between UTEP and Texas Tech improve quite a bit over the past several years, with the ability to take on projects like I was able to do with Luis, and even other projects that are now getting joint support and funding between the institutions through a joint seed grant program, and some of the barriers between IRBs and some of the tech transfer offices working together more efficiently, that those are things that are going to certainly help develop further innovation within the region over the next 5 years.
Okay. We have a question from Philip in the chat. It says, are university tech transfer policies a problem when attempting to commercialize university-owned intellectual property?
To my knowledge, I think like if the innovation is coming from the student, and I think the student owns the intellectual property for that. But again, if we are using like a federally funded programs and utilizing that fund for developing something innovation, then I think the universities would have a better, like a larger control of that. It's again that's my very limited knowledge on that, but yeah, that's what I think.
At least in terms of Texas Tech's commercialization office and interactions, I think that they've been remarkably transparent with how they approach and the detail with which they assist in the review to be able to move things forward. So I do know that, you know, some individuals may not feel like it's as supportive as it needs to be, but through my interactions, I've felt that they've been very, very good in being able to describe the process and give recommendations on next steps and providing support and guidance through the process.
Okay. Awesome. Luis, do you have anything to add?
No, not right now. Thanks.
On your experience? Great. So I have another question from Judy Prasad. She says that what kind of programs should academic institutions provide you with to promote education about innovation and entrepreneurship? I imagine this besides the usual in the program in the career the class that you already mentioned. Besides just the class, what other programs should the academic institutions have?
I don't know. That reminds me, like a lot of companies, what it's called skunk works, right? Where there's a funding just to do fun things, you know, just to do research and let's see what comes out from all this. Probably having something like that in the university that doesn't really expect something, but just let them have fun, do research. That might be a good idea, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Some form of competitions. So, like in our class, you know, when we teach the simulation models, you know, there are some international competitions that, you know, our students participate. You know, so that will so they will be competing with you know, all the other universities that teaches this this simulation model, and you know, they will be developing their own models, and you know, that would definitely help them to, you know, think out on their own, and you know, maybe develops, you know, something that is remarkably different. So that those kind of competitions would definitely help in the long run.
Those hackathons and those startup weekends and all that, those programs are usually helpful, and it really is dependent on the universities to seek out those opportunities and those partnerships. And another question is if you would be open to participating in a program that encourages entrepreneurship that's offered outside the university, outside the academia.
I would say, I mean, like an entrepreneur who wants to become an entrepreneur, so they will try to find all the resources that they need, and it doesn't matter whether it is within the university or, you know, outside. So I mean, with all the COVID-19 situation, what we have learned is that like everybody is capable of learning a lot, you know, without the help from faculties, and you know, they are able to use Google and all the other online education materials. It has, like, I also have been, you know, taking a lot of online courses, you know, apart from this university work, but you know, all these things would definitely help. Like the source of this education doesn't matter, I think. Like as long as we are learning something new, like it doesn't matter where we are learning it from.
Okay. Well, before we finish, I would like to allow some time to for each of our panelists to present a bit about your research. You're all making great research. I've seen like at big strokes what everyone is focusing on, but I would like you all to share, if you could, sorry, and the little time we have left. So yeah, so Dr. Medazo, if you would like to go first to explain us a bit about your research.
Yeah, so currently we are working on a project for the idea about the digital twin. So this idea actually we started working on when the mayor sent an email to Elon Musk telling that why don't you come to El Paso when he was making a decision to move his the new headquarters for the second headquarters for Tesla. So like even though that didn't work out, like we were thinking about we need to have some form of ways to visually convey how is it going to be advantageous for any of the companies to move to El Paso. So like as I mentioned, like, one of the ways that we do here is to develop visualization modules and simulation modules. And we have been working very closely with Borderplex as well, to work with various industries and utilize their information about where are the suppliers located, what do they make, who are their customers, and identifying this this various information. We will be able to identify what are all the different manufacturing elements that is missing in this region. And once we have identified that, we can tell, okay, if you let us say like we have a big manufacturer here, and say, okay, if you can bring a supplier to this particular region, that means you're going to save a lot of money in transportation of your products. The total cost of ownership is going to go low, and we will be able to develop that in a visual environment using the simulation or the digital twin world. And that will help us in convincing these companies to come to El Paso, because what we have understood is that many of the companies are unaware of what is the total cost of ownership. And once they learn about the total cost of ownership and how it is going to help, we already have a lot of manufacturing facilities here in this region. And like I was also very surprised, like I didn't know about this earlier, that El Paso region, the Paseo del Norte region is one of the top 5 manufacturing hub in the country. And like once we have this information and once we have all the mapping done, we can actually identify how we can make this manufacturing hub a little bit more once we have identified it. So we are trying to connect that using a visualization module. We connect the data from these companies and put that into the visualization module, and hopefully we can see what are some of the major performance factors that can help these companies make a decision. Okay, moving to El Paso or to this region would be a better option. So that is what we are currently working on. So we are working on a very simple simulation model right now with 1 or 2 manufacturers and suppliers in this network to build a prototype model so that we can show it to a wide variety of the companies. Again, we heavily rely on data. So like we want to convince the companies here that this data, like if we have this data, we can definitely help you in making better decisions using digital twin. So that is the current process that we are working on.
Awesome. Dr. Crawford?
A lot of the work that I've been doing has involved observations from my clinical experience in the emergency department and seeing areas where problems have been addressed using existing equipment rather than a specific concentrated design or innovation to solve those healthcare related issues. And so that's been everything from improving ergonomics with how we perform certain procedures to trying to improve the devices or tools used to assist with patient care. And then separately looking at some innovations within the medical training environment within the simulation center, where we're trying to design and improve products to help train new learners within the healthcare environment.
Awesome. Luis?
Well, I'm not doing any research at the moment, but mostly product development, right? So I'm working with 2 inventors, entrepreneurs in town, helping them go into production. So their products are already ready for production. So we're working on the final details on that. But I'm also working on a project with a local company. It's not so much an entrepreneur and inventor, but it is an actual company that has requested a new product to be developed, to be produced. So we're working on that as well.
Awesome. So you all 3 have very different backgrounds, experience, and are working on very different areas. So, and I'm really glad to have had all you as guests on this Tech Tuesday. So just to finalize today's event, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Madathil, Dr. Crawford, and Luis. Thank you everyone for joining this conversation. I would like to just encourage everyone, and next month's Tech Tuesday is going to be focused on fueling innovation through leadership, where we have our own president, Emma Schwartz, talking about how leadership on a regional setting promotes innovation and fosters this entrepreneurship. So that's going to be next month, and you can check our social media to learn all about the opportunities. So without further ado, thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.